median life expectancy for liver transplant patients, the number is somewhat skewed by the 1-year survival rate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are you familiar with the Barber study out of the UK, Transplant Advisory Group?
No, I mean, not that I recall.
All right. Would you agree that if you take out the 1-year survival, and if you only look at individuals who have survived beyond 1 year, that median life expectancy goes up substantially?
It does go up.
And doctor, you have a number of patients that you currently or have treated in the past that have survival rates at 25, 30, 35 years and continue to thrive?
Yes, sir. I have several patients right now that are 30, 35 years out.
And is it the younger, healthier patients, individuals with transplants in their 20s or 30s that are more likely to have those kinds of outcomes?
Yes, sir.
And you're not sitting here saying that Mr. Hunwardsen can't be one of those individuals, right?
Not at all. I hope he's one of those individuals.
Okay, and then we talked a little bit, or you talked a little bit about immunosuppressants with Mr. Parker. Don't liver transplant patients typically have their immunosuppressants reduced over time?
They do. The body develops a tolerance to the immune system, and over time we typically do lower the immunosuppressants.
And in fact, you have some patients that have had liver transplants that are completely off of immunosuppressants, isn't that right?
No, sir, I have none.
You have none?
I have none.
You have in the past, though?
I have in the past, yes, sir. It's isolated, but I've now followed thousands of liver transplant patients, so it's a very, very rare thing.
Okay. But it's fair to say that over time, the immunosuppressant treatment is reduced with most liver transplant patients?
That is correct.
Okay. And it's also fair to say that in the past, you have had some that were reduced to zero or simply quit taking?
A few, but yes, that is true.
All right. And as far as ability to go back to work goes, don't you have liver transplant patients that have returned to their normal jobs?
My objective is always to bring people back to their previous life and put them back to work. That's why I do transplant, to return people to a previous life that they had.
And have you had a really, let me put it this way, have you had a good success rate in getting people back to work?
I push my patients pretty hard to get back to work. And of course, it varies as to what they can do. You know, a sedentary job, working in an office, is totally different than, say, Mr. Hunwardsen, who is a steel worker. So, you know, the tolerance to that type of job is going to vary depending on, number one, the age of the patient, number one, the overall health of the patient, and number three, what that job occupation is.
Fair enough. But you're not saying that all of your past transplant patients have been white-collar workers, are you?
No, sir.
Okay. And you've had blue-collar transplant patients that have returned to work?
Absolutely.
And you've had transplant patients that have gone back to work for 20-plus years?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Now, regarding some of the side effects of immunosuppressant drugs, is it true that if there are issues with one of the drugs, or if there appears to be some concerns with it, you can increase another one or put them on another one and decrease that one?
That is correct. And that's sort of the beauty of the mycophenolate and the tacrolimus that we've talked about in this courtroom, is that if the tacrolimus starts causing more side effects with that patient, particularly with the kidneys and the blood pressure, you can manipulate the mycophenolate a little bit, or you might need to add some prednisone and back down on the tacrolimus a little bit.
You also mentioned hypertension. I'm sorry, hypertension is elevated blood pressure? Is that
Yes, sir.
right? Okay. You mentioned some of the potential side effects could be hypertension and cardiovascular disease. Is there any evidence that, as Mr. Hunwardsen has suffered any of those at this point in time?
Not so far, thank goodness.
And you'd agree, even among non-transplant patients in the United States, hypertension and cardiovascular disease are fairly common?
They are fairly common, but much more common in the liver transplant population.
Okay. But you're not sitting here and saying it's more likely than not that Mr. Hunwardsen will suffer from hypertension and cardiovascular disease in the next 10 years, are you?
Oh, I am saying that.
All right.
Yes, I think it is likely that he will.
Do you know what the general male U.S. population is for suffering from hypertension?
No, sir.
What about cardiovascular disease?
No, sir.
Do you have any reason to disagree that males in the United States over 50, that the rate of hypertension is 50%?
That may be true. I don't know that number.
Okay. Do you know the number for cardiovascular disease?
Do not.
Okay. Do you know whether or not it's over or under 50%?
I do not, sir.
All right. Do you know whether or not Mr. Hunwardsen has been in need of any, what do you call it, like life care needs, like hospice care at this point in time?
No, sir.
Is Mr. Hunwardsen currently on prednisone?
No, sir. He's off prednisone now.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hudson. That's all I have for you.
HGT? No question, Your Honor. Okay, thank you. Counsel, the planner for your direct.
Quick follow-up, Dr. Hudson, this will be really short. Mr. Love asked you about the monitoring for all the plaintiffs here.
Yes, sir.
In your experience, do patients have some anxiety or anguish about the monitoring, that they're concerned about the results?
Objection beyond the scope of
John.
You brought it
On
up.
scope
of the cross-examination.
John. What's going to sustain the way the question is phrased?
I'll rephrase it. Mr. Love asked you questions about monitoring a few moments ago. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
And he went through each one of the plaintiffs in terms of their monitoring needs, correct?
Yes, sir.
In terms of patients doing or having to go through monitoring annually or biannually, you've experienced that.
Yes, sir.
Your patients have come to you.
They do.
Is there anxiety that goes along with that?
There is some anxiety that goes along with that.
They're afraid of what they may say.
Yes, sir.
Now, the other point I wanted to ask you about, Mr. Love asked you questions about the general population in America when it comes to hypertension or diabetes. Do you remember that string of questions?
I do.
Are you here as a cardiologist?
No, sir.
Are you here as a doctor that deals with diabetes day in and day out?
No, sir. I'm a
You know-
transplant hepatologist.
And you know the population of those who have had transplants, liver
I
transplant?
do.
And when you gave your opinions earlier today about colon cancer, diabetes, hypertension, were all those based upon your experience as a hepatologist and your experience in liver transplant?
Yes, sir. These are things that I deal with every day and experience in my patient population all the time.
And when you gave those opinions in terms of the likelihood of these other problems, that was based upon you having been a part of thousands of liver transplant patients.
Thousands of transplant patients in 35 years.
Thank you so much. No further questions on that.
Any cross counsel?
I mean, Dr. Hudson, when we were talking about the potential side effects from immunosuppressives, like the hypertension, cardiovascular issues, I recall your testimony saying it might happen. Do you have firm numbers on any of those?
Firm numbers, certainly it's more likely to occur than not occur that they're going to have these side effects.
Okay, but that wasn't my question. Do you have like, there's a 8% chance or 3.7%?
Well, hypertension is between 48 and 64%. And some of the other effects are less than that. But when you look at the overall side effects, it's more likely than not that Mr. Hunwardsen is going to experience one or more of those side effects.
Okay. And as we stand here in the courtroom today, do you know with any kind of certainty that he will or he won't?
As certain as I can be in estimating something like this in the future.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Nothing on it. Thank you. Counsel for plaintiff,
That's it.
redirect.
Nothing else, Your Honor. Thank you so much.
Not to meet your question, so just witness excused for all purposes or subject to recall.
I believe for all purposes, Your Honor.
Joanna,
I agree, Your Honor.
ETT? Agreed for all purposes. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time. So witness excused for all purposes. Go through and leave whatever was here when you got here.
I'll take it
If
all.
something you need to drop, you can take a listen, watch your step. Thank you so very much. Okay, this is exiting. Is this a great time to have our lunch break?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. He's distracting me, Your Honor. He's walking out. Of course, Your Honor.
Yeah.
On behalf of Real Water, we'd love to get some lunch now. Thank you.
ETT?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Yes.
I think you would too, right? So this gives you a recess of knowledge when we get you out for lunch. Thank you so much. So it being, 12:16, 1:20. So ladies and gentlemen, during this lunch recess, you're admonished not to talk or converse among yourselves with anyone else on any subject connected with this trial. You may not read, watch, or listen to any report, other commentary on the trial or any person or entity connected with the trial by any medium of information, including without limitations, social media, text, tweets, newspapers, television, internet, radio. Anything I've not stated specifically is also included. Do not visit the scene or the events mentioned during the trial. Do not undertake any research, experimentation, or investigation. Excuse me. Do not do any posting or communications on any social networking sites or anywhere else. Do not do any independent research, including but not limited to internet searches, and do not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with the trial until the case is fully and finally submitted to you at the time of jury deliberations. With that, have a very nice and relaxing night.
All rise for the jury, please.
Just 1 second till I get the okay. Counsel, since nobody requested, I was going to address something at lunch. Is that now a moot issue because A,
It's moved, Your Honor.
Councilor Watt?
I don't think we have anything.
It's a definite issue with regards to Dr. Hudson. I'm just asking if that's moot or you still need the court to address at the time during lunch.
On behalf of Real Water, Mark Love, I believe it's moot. Nobody chose to use it with him during his testimony.
I really want to ask the court to address it or say you want to use it, okay? ETT, do you believe it's moot as well?
Valerie Rojas for ETT, yes, we believe it's me.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice relaxing lunch.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Record outside the presence of the jury. Is there any administrative matters or as soon as the marshal has a chance to confirm that we have overall our panelists, that the jury should come in?
Norm, just a small matter. We can take care of it at the afternoon break. I don't want to talk about it right now, only because we've had other exhibit issues. Maybe this is not the best time to bring it up. I figured to bring it up maybe at the end of the day when we're more relaxed. But it may hamper our ability to start with some of the terrible witnesses. In preparation last night, I'll just give everyone a heads up. In preparation last night, Donna, I realized that one of the documents that is on the list of exhibits actually had a reference. This document was put in front of the jury, let me just say that, has a reference to insurance. And so thank God I was going over it and I caught it. It had been redacted, but for some reason the insurance information had not been redacted. And there's insurance for Terrible Herbst. So Again, thank God, diligence prevailed, but what I intended to do, and I thought that everybody want to make sure, so we don't make any mistakes here, is substitute all of the exhibits that I intended to use, not all of the exhibits, the ones I intended to use, your eyes got really big, that I intended to use, that I intended to use for redacted versions of those same exhibits. And I also changed the caption so that the other defendants aren't identified on the caption. So my thought is to give it to everybody else, let them see it, hopefully if I miss something, they'll catch it, but I didn't want to take a chance. So,
Do I hold,
For the next,
I'm sorry.
it's not for the next witness, or the next witness, or the next witness.
okay, because we're gonna have to figure out, I mean, these are electronic exhibits that now there's issues with.
Yes, Your Honor, I bought new electronics for the court.
So they're not
For the
electronics,
bids.
they're pieces of paper in front of, right, in your hands,
I got paper for us, but I brought electronic for you.
but that's multiple.
I brought paper for you too.
It's a longer version on electronics. Do you have a goldenrod?
What do I have? No. It has to be paper. So I got paper and I got electronic. You can have either, you can have both.
It's not as simple as just putting it as a jump drive. There's a whole protocol with a virus check and a goldenrod, which
Okay.
realistically keeping the jury out there right now to kind of walk through that.
I don't know.
Again, you might want to check with your colleagues. If it's not a this witness issue,
It's
let's
not.
bring the jury in, let you get through the witness, and let's then talk to your colleagues and come up with what they want to do. And then we'll see if the court can accommodate that based on whatever technology, et cetera, okay?
Sounds great, Your
May
Honor.
I ask though, but based on what the counsel just said, it sounded as though he was
And that's
not
Mr.
going.
Boho on behalf of the ETT speaking.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, Dan Boho on behalf of ETT. My understanding, if I may ask, Mr. Parker, are you saying that I do not need to hold Mr. Walters here this afternoon?
I still like to start, Mr. Walters, if we have time. We got 3 more witnesses. You
No,
know,
I didn't mean it over a time
Oh.
issue, it was over this other, did you
I'm
want
gonna
to
give
look
you,
at stuff
you can
first?
take a look at these.
Fine.
And that way we got 3 witnesses to go. You'll have plenty of time to look at it.
Yeah, let's hold them here then in case you need them for now.
Okay. And I got a copy for everyone. So.
The court's going to wait, and I'm going to hear if there's a joint suggestion from the parties. Let's see if that joint suggestion works, or if there's not a joint suggestion, what the court's going to need to do, because we're going to need clarification of document numbers, what you all want to do, and there's just a longer version on that one with exhibits, so.
Thank you so
Does that
much, Your
take
Honor.
care of your immediate?
It does, Your Honor. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
everyone's thinking too much. Okay, Mr. Pepperman, you're standing up. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Your Honor, the next witness for plaintiffs will be Ms. Brody, who I understand has a hearing aid and has been using the headset for portions of the trial. I recall the court mentioning a potential issue with the feedback. I didn't know if you wanted to try to see how this would work before we bring the jury in.
Sure, but she took off, she hasn't been using her headset all day today, which is one of the reasons you might have seen the marshal stop by to see if he needed any assistance on that. So the first question becomes, is she, sorry, I was trying to speak louder this morning because of the mask that I have on, which you can now appreciate means I have less of a voice now this afternoon. So anytime anyone can't hear me, please let me know. Okay. Is she going to need hearing assisted headphones that she just put on a second ago? Because she hadn't had them on all day, that's why I thought I had.
Do you think you'll need them on
They're
the,
buried to my phone. Let me make sure I have them in the proper place.
Oh, I got it.
The short answer is, we're glad to accommodate, let's just find out what is the accommodation being requested, right? So is it as simple as, is she doing straight hearing aids, she's doing hearing aids and the hearing assisted headphone device? Or something different?
Now I can hear.
do you need the headphones?
I'll try them. I'm not sure because it depends on if you're speaking from there directly to me. I may be able to hear without the headphones.
The court's gonna be fine. So if your question is, can she go to the stand for a moment? And you want to test asking a question and an answer, and nobody objects, the court's gonna be perfectly fine with that. Is there any objection by Real Water?
No objection.
Okay, any objection by ETT?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so if Ms. Brody wants to come to the stand for a quick second, why don't we get that checked out and see what meets her needs. So we're not swearing her in, so just ask like a generalized whatever question. And court reporter will tell me if there's any advice, okay? Appreciate it, thanks.
Your Honor, would it be okay if I was a
Yeah,
little
sure.
closer, Judge?
Uh, You're not gonna be able to do it once the jury comes in. We're keeping
Back here?
same rules for everyone consistently, right? So that we ensure if she needs it as an accommodation under state and federal law for ADA, more than glad to do so. If it's just a preference issue, then we need to treat everyone the same and equal, right?
It's okay.
Sure, yeah, don't just,
Ms. Brody, are you okay to hear me?
Yes.
okay, we're good.
Do you,
Nobody's hearing any
do you
feedback?
want to wear the headphones to hear me?
I probably should, I hear you perfectly.
Okay. Any problem with feedback?
Nope.
Okay, great. Thank you, Your
Now,
Honor.
wait a second, are you gonna be doing any technology in addition, like?
We have some PowerPoint slides.
She should, we're good, okay. Earlier on, we had a different issue, depending on what technology people were doing, that's more video-based than stills, and yours just stills with her, is that
I
correct?
understand, no video, yes or no?
I'm not saying you can't use video, just saying we may need to come to some other option if you are.
Yes, I appreciate what the court's saying, and there's no video.
Okay, no worries, and she can go
Okay.
off the stand unless you all are requesting that she stay there and when the jury comes in, what do you all want?
It-
Court has no preference, what do you all want?
Your Honor, I mean, we're fine with her already being at the stand when the jury comes in. I mean, she'll have to be called to the stand in a technical
I
way.
ask counsel, please call your next witness,
Right.
and call the witness, say that either she's already on the stand, if you all want that, if you don't, she can go back to her seat, court has no preference, what do you all want? Ms. Pepperman, what do you want?
I'm fine with her remaining on the stand and calling her.
Okay, that's two, ETT,
Valerie Rojas for ETT, we have no problem with this one.
Ms. Marshall, go get the jury then, folks?
We would, Your Honor, sorry to interrupt. If they are going to put up any slides for her direct examination, we'd like to know in advance what they are, if they're admitted exhibits already or not admitted, as opposed to being surprised by something that's not admitted.
No, yes, Your Honor, the slides are all the exhibits we've already admitted and used. They're exhibit 631. They're all pages from exhibit 631.
Sorry, what is this?
Medical records,
Okay.
right, Ms. Pepperman? They're medical records, right?
Yes, Your Honor, and I can show counsel the slides. I have a copy here.
You said 631 previously was.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think it's 636, actually.
I thought it was in the fourth one. I thought I remember the fourth one.
No, 636 is on the
subset.
Oh, I see.
What's the subset you all been talking about in the mid-60s, 628? Okay, so, counsel, did you want to clarify, is it, the 631 was somebody else's number previously?
It is 636, Your Honor.
Okay, everyone's good?
I could show counsel too.
If we can just quickly glance at it.
No worries.
Your Honor, while he's doing that, should I give, or does the court would like a copy of the video from this morning, the 9-second video?
My wonderful clerk would like that, but can we just hand it to the marshal? Look
Perfect.
how timing is perfect, look at that.
It is work. We're working together, man.
We multitask so wonderfully, thank you so very much. Is our jury outside the door ready to come in?
No, Judge. I was just going out back.
Oh, okay. You were ready for them when you were ready to get them.
Okay.
Beautiful, thank you so much. Because by the time you all address whatever your second checking on something. Is there anything else, Ms. Pepperman, you need? If not, I'm circling around to everybody else.
No, Your Honor, thank you very much.
No water, anything you need outside the presence?
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
ETT.
Valerie Rojas for ETT, nothing further.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if Mr. Wade was like raising his hand or you needed to.
Nope, just cleaning my glasses, Your Honor.
No worries, just want to make sure he's taken care of. Okay. And do remember, once again, it's you all's responsibility. If you're looking, if witnesses were supposed to be admonished, et cetera, so whoever's on blue jeans is whoever's on blue jeans. Remember the courts doesn't know who all those boxes are, so you all need to regularly monitor them if you have any concerns in that regard. court takes no position on anything, it's just, seem to have more boxes being added, so. Thank you so much, Marshall.
Okay. All right, for the jury, please.
Come on in, folks.
The Honorable members of the jury are present. Everyone, please be seated.
Appreciate it. Hope everyone had a very nice lunch. Welcome back. As you can see, I'm going to ask counsel for plaintiff to call the next witness. Realistically, we're just kind of multitasking, so have her already on the stand. Grace with counsel for plaintiff, would you like to call your next witness?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Plaintiff's called Miriam Brody.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Will you please swear in the witness?
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pain and penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Miriam Brody, MIRIAM
Appreciate it. Okay, feel free, you can sit down. Same thing, you heard me caution a couple of other people, just to make sure you stay somewhat close to the microphone so we can hear you nice and clearly. And a couple of the other admonitions, just that people have a tendency to kind of do uh-huhs, nods of their heads, but we always need to make sure there's actually audible answer, okay? Appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Counsel, feel free to commence with your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
afternoon.
As Mr. Parker always comments, we get the joy of first thing after lunch, so I know it's difficult when you're back from lunch, but I appreciate your time and attention. And good afternoon, Miriam. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm fine, thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Are you nervous?
A little. I'm not used to this, obviously.
That's natural. Let me have you tell the jury a little bit about yourself. Where are you originally from?
I was born in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Did you grow up in Pennsylvania?
No, I lived there for 7 years, and then my family and I took a train to Los Angeles, California. I was 7 years old.
Is that where you lived for the most of your childhood?
I lived through until I was 19. I went to high school, grammar school and high school there, and then moved to the other side of town, the west side.
What did you do after high school?
After high school, during high school, when I helped my dad, he had a little market in East LA, and I would help him in the summers. And then after that, I went and got a job after high school.
And this is typically a sensitive question, but I think it's already been discussed. How old are you currently?
I'm 84 years old.
And are you retired?
Yes, I am.
What was your job prior to your retirement?
I worked at 20th Century Fox Movie Studios for 32 years.
What did you do for the movie studio?
Production work, like working on TV and movies, and I was like a troubleshooter from the office. I worked with production managers and writers and producers.
Did you work on any movies or TV shows that we might be familiar with?
I worked on MASH, and at the end of my career, I worked on Titanic, and it was all from the office, though.
So no lunches with Kate Winslet or Leonardo DiCaprio?
No, never.
Are you married?
No, I am not married.
Have you ever been married?
I was married briefly when I was 21.
What about children?
I have no children.
Any siblings?
I had a brother who passed away like 30 years ago.
Sorry, how did he pass?
He had cancer.
When did you move to Las Vegas?
I moved in March of 1997.
What brought you here?
I came to visit a friend one day, and I loved it. It was out all open, and the weather was beautiful, and it just was different from California, because California had changed so much.
Did you have any family or friends here when you moved here?
I had 2 friends here, and then later one of my best friends moved here.
So you retired and moved to Las Vegas and started a new life here in 1997. Is that
Yes.
right? Tell us about your life since moving to Las Vegas. What kind of things do you do? How do you like to spend your time?
Well, when I was younger, obviously it was different, but we used to go to concerts or wander around the Strip and go down to Fremont Street and things like that. And then now I'm pretty much, I stay home a lot more and watch TV, watch Netflix, and go to lunch with friends, go out and gamble a little and drink. And I have a wonderful life here. It was a smart move. I love it here.
Let's talk about why we're here today. When did you start drinking real water?
November 2018.
So at this time, how old were you?
I was 78, almost 79.
And how was your health generally?
I was in pretty good health. I mean, I tried to take care of myself and eat properly and exercise and do everything you're supposed to do.
My understanding is that at that time, that as is the case with a lot of people, you were dealing with high blood pressure. Is that?
Yes, I was dealing with high blood pressure.
Any other major health problems that you were dealing with?
No, I didn't have any serious health problems at all.
What attracted you to real water?
I had a friend, and she had a friend who was into health and said that real water was the best water you could drink. It's, you know. Anyway, so I tried it, and it didn't work out too well.
Did you purchase the retail bottles of real water?
I purchased, yes, the bottles, like the liters.
And just to be clear, you did not purchase from Terrible Herbst, correct?
No, I did not.
Did you ever get the 5-gallon home delivery?
No, I did not.
After you started drinking real water in November 2018, did you start to experience any health problems?
Yes, definitely.
Can you tell us what you experienced?
I was in a beauty salon having a pedicure, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I got this heat came over my body and my face kind of swelled and was hot. And my hands started tingling, and then I passed out. And then when I came to, one of the girls in the salon helped me to the bathroom. Everyone wondered what happened to me. And then I ended up throwing up and having diarrhea. And I just felt like I was out of control of my whole body.
Did you have abdominal pain?
Yes, I had stomach ache, and then I went to the bathroom, yes.
Had you ever experienced anything like this to this degree before?
Never. It was really scary, because I couldn't figure out what was wrong, and you know, especially when you're a little older, you think, oh, this is it.
Were you able to drive after this?
Oh, no. They called one of my friends to pick me up. I could not drive. I couldn't function.
Did you have an altered mental state?
Yeah, I couldn't. I just didn't feel like I could even think. I couldn't think.
And what did you do after this happened at the nail salon?
I went home and went to bed, and for a few days I still didn't feel well. And then as time went on, I go out with my friends once in a while, and I would drive myself, and then we'd go to lunch, and then all of a sudden I got sick again. I was like, I just felt out of control of my body, and my face would swell. And they'd have to drive me home again.
Did you go to a neurologist?
Yes, I called my doctor and told him what had happened, and he sent me to a neurologist, and she did a brain scan. I didn't get immediate results, but I went back a few days later, and my brain was okay.
Shane, if we could pull up the slides, please. And there you are, Miss Brody.
I see.
We can go to the slide of the Neurology Center of Nevada exhibit. And Your Honor, this is previously admitted exhibit number 636.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Feel free to continue.
This, Ms. Brody, is a document from your visit to the Neurology Center of Nevada, dated November 14th, 2018. And in the narrative, it states that she reports on 11/12/2018 that she was having a pedicure, felt dizzy, right side of the face felt warm, and then had loss of consciousness. Unclear duration, no injuries, sitting at the time, no loss of bowel bladder, unclear how long she was unconscious, went home, felt jittery, nausea, vomiting, and heart palpitations. Is this reference to the incident at the pedicure salon that you just told the jury about?
Yes,
And is November 14th, 2018 the date that you saw the neurologist after that event?
I saw her on the 12th, and then, oh yeah, after that, then on the 14th, yes.
So the pedicure incident was on November 12th, 2018, and you saw the neurologist for what
14th.
happened on the 14th, correct? Prior to this visit, had you ever previously seen a neurologist before?
Not that I recall, no.
You weren't seeing a neurologist for high blood pressure or anything?
No. Just my regular doctor.
Now, Ms. Brody, did you suffer another medical emergency on November 24th, 2018?
Yes, the same thing came over me. I was at home, and fortunately, I had a friend with me, and my doctor told me that if I was really, really bad like that again, not to take a chance and call 911. So I did. I called 911 because I had the same symptoms again, and I just couldn't figure it out because this had been going, on for like 2 weeks. But this time it was the same as in the nail salon. My hands got tingly. I couldn't think, and I had to go to the bathroom, and I was like shaking. I couldn't understand what was going on.
And Miriam, I want to ask you some more questions about that. Before we get there, though, I'd like to talk about the time period between November 12th, the event at the nail salon, and November 24th, the event you just referenced.
Yes.
During this time period, did you continue to drink real water?
Yes, I did. I drank it.
And did you continue to feel sick?
That's when I got sick. When I went out with my friends, I would get sick again, and I couldn't figure it out.
So this was an ongoing problem during this entire time, your illness?
Yes, before I went to the hospital.
So let's go back to November 24th, 2018, the time that you had this event. Can you tell the jury what symptoms you were experiencing at this time?
At my house, okay. I started feeling that heat come over me, and my heart was pounding, and my hands were tingling, and then I went to the bathroom and I threw up, and I had stomach cramps, the same symptoms.
So when you say same symptoms, you mean nausea?
As in the nausea, like as in the salon when I had my pedicure.
Was there vomiting?
Yes.
Were you experiencing dizziness?
I was just out of control, period. I couldn't think. I couldn't do anything because I didn't know what was going on. I was scared.
Did you feel confused or like you had an altered mental state?
Yes.
And were your hands tingling and shaking?
Same thing as before, and usually I'm in control, but I couldn't function. That's the whole thing.
And this time you were at home and
I was at home with a friend,
it was
fortunately.
serious enough that you called 911.
Yes.
And did an ambulance come?
Yes, the ambulance came and they took my vitals, and then they took me to Henderson Hospital.
Shane, can we pull up the next slide, which is another page from Exhibit 636? This is the ambulance report. And if you look, Ms. Brody, this narrative discusses your symptoms. You're near passing out, tingling in your hands, dizziness. Does that refresh your recollection that you were experiencing dizziness?
Yes.
Vomiting?
This is, yes,
And this also referenced that you've been having intermittent episodes similar to this over the last month. Is that a reference to the event at the nail salon?
they were similar, but not as intense. That's why I went out with my friends a few times and had to be driven home.
So this was a way
Ongoing
that you
thing.
were regularly feeling as you're drinking real water in November
Yes.
2018. Okay. So you mentioned that the ambulance transported you to Henderson Hospital,
Yes, correct.
and this would be on November 24th.
Yes,
Were you, when the ambulance took you to the hospital, were you admitted?
yes, I was admitted.
How long were you hospitalized?
2 days, 2 nights, 2 days.
So you were admitted on November 24th, is that
Yes.
right? And you were discharged on November 26th.
Correct.
And so you spent 2 nights and 3 days in the hospitals.
Approximately.
Prior to this event, had you ever been previously hospitalized for multiple days and nights?
For what?
For multiple days and nights?
No,
Have you ever been previously hospitalized even overnight?
I'm trying to think back, and it's a lot of years
That you can recall.
that I can recall over. I don't recall us being in the hospital overnight, but I can't swear to it.
Friendly reminder, and appreciate sometimes it's a bit conversational, we just need to make sure it's question, pause, then answer. And before any question, we've got a couple times when you all are both talking at the same time, we just want to make sure everybody's a nice clear record. Appreciate it, thank you so very much, feel free to proceed.
And Miriam, I'll try to be a little bit better. I know sometimes I could trail off and it may seem like I'm done with the hearing, but I'll try to do better for you.
Okay, thank you.
Prior to being transported to the hospital via ambulance, had you ever called 911 for a medical emergency?
Never,
Had you ever been taken to a hospital via ambulance?
no, never.
Shane, if we could go to the next slide, please. This is page 21 of Exhibit 636. And this is the note from your consultation when you arrived at Henderson Hospital on the 24th. This states that you had tingling in both hands with associated abdominal cramping, nausea, and vomiting. Do you recall suffering these symptoms when you were hospitalized?
Yes,
This note also says diarrhea for the past few days. Had you been suffering diarrhea for several days leading up to your hospitalization?
yes.
We can go to the next slide, which is another medical consultation note, page 14 of Exhibit 636, from November 24th, 2018. This provides for review of symptoms, and it says additional review of systems information unable to obtain due to altered mental status. Do you recall suffering from an altered mental status when you were admitted to the hospital?
Yes,
And you said you were discharged from the hospital on November 26, 2018, correct?
that is correct.
Is that date significant to you?
Yes, it was my 79th birthday.
Not the best way to spend a birthday, would you
I was
agree?
happy to get out.
I admire your positive attitude, Miriam.
I'm always positive.
While you were in the hospital for those couple days and nights, to your knowledge, did the doctors run any tests on your liver while you were there?
I was told they did not run any liver tests. I didn't know, I didn't know what they were running, to be honest.
Miriam, is it your understanding that Real Water has admitted fault for your injuries and hospitalization in November of 2018?
Yes,
You have been here for the majority of the trial, correct?
yes, I have been.
You heard Dr. Hudson's testimony earlier today,
Yes,
and you heard Dr. Hudson's recommendation that you get biannual liver tests to monitor for any problems that may arise in the future, correct?
correct.
Is that something that you have an interest and commitment in doing going forward?
Yes, I would do that.
Thank you, Miriam. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Counsel for Real Water, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Brody, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'll be very brief with you. I just want to start off by saying that, we're very sorry about your hospitalization back in 2018. And as you heard your counsel say, we accept liability and we apologize, okay? Now, you just told us that you first started drinking Real Water in November 2018?
Correct.
Do you remember when you last drank Real Water?
Until I went to the hospital.
Okay. So all the times that you had consumed Real Water would have been confined to the month of November of 2018?
That was correct.
Okay. And I saw in one of the medical records that your counsel put up that you had been having issues with lightheadedness and getting close to passing out for a couple of months before the hospitalization. Is that accurate?
I'm trying to think back, if it were accurate. My blood pressure was like a little off, but the feeling wasn't the same. It was like totally different. It was, slight. It wasn't intense, or I was like, didn't know what was going on.
Okay. And after your birthday, and again, we apologize, after you got out of the hospital on your birthday and for the rest of, 2018 going into 2019, did you feel better?
Yes, I felt better.
Okay. And how are you doing now?
I'm doing pretty well. I think for my age, like I say, when you're in your 80s, it's a little different than when you're young.
Sure, I know, I'm getting there rapidly.
I don't think so.
And do you believe you have any emotional issues associated with this hospitalization now?
No, no longer.
And what do you do for fun these days?
Like I said, I've calmed down a bit, but I go out with my friends, for lunch, or I'll go gamble and drink and go like walking. Basically, I live a very simple life. I feel very fortunate. I have a wonderful life.
You don't miss Los Angeles?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Not anymore. Wait,
All right.
it's becoming Los Angeles here, I need to tell you.
All right, and again, Ms. Brody, I just want to say thank you for coming out this afternoon.
Thank you.
And we apologize, and that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Counsel for ETT, cross-examination.
None, Your Honor, thank you.
If there's no cross-examination, then I go back to redirect counsel for plaintiff.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Just witness that excused for all purposes or subject to recall, if subject to recall, what part of the case, please?
All purposes, Your Honor.
Not all purposes, no.
All purposes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so very much. This witness is excused. I did not see any jury questions, so just watch your step on the way down, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Okay, counsel for plaintiff, would you like to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Plaintiffs will call, if I can, Your Honor, can I step out to make sure our next witness is here?
Sure, the marshal can.
Who is it?
Uiuhas?
If he He is there. Would you like for me to bring him in?
Yes, Your Honor. Our next witness will be Steve Uiuhas.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Marshall.
Set your stuff down there so you can raise your right hand. There you go. Go ahead and climb up there. Set your stuff down, raise your right hand and face the clerk right over there.
You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pain and penalty of perjury?
Yes,
Have a seat and please state and spell your name for the record.
thank you. My name is Stephen Andrew Uiuhas. It's Steven, Andrew, Andrew, Uiuhas, Yuhas.
Do you all approach for a brief moment, ma'am, for a transplant, please? Plaintiff, since the witness has been sworn in, you can feel free to commence with your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Uiuhas.
Good afternoon.
Could you please tell, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what are your areas of expertise?
My training expertise is in vocational rehabilitation,
I'm sorry,
life care planning.
the microphone, can you move the microphone? Wait, there you go, thank you.
I'll give you my couple friendly reminders that I tell people. One, you gotta have the microphone nice and close to you. Gotta make sure you speak up so you get a clear record. Couple other things, there's no uh-huhs, shrugs, nods, and things like that. Always have to have an audible response. And then the last one is always need to make sure that if counsel's asking a question, you pause a second before you answer so you just don't have people talking at the same time, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Appreciate it, thanks very much. Okay, feel free to continue.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Uiuhas, can you repeat your answer? What are your areas of expertise?
Yes, my background in training, professional training is in vocational rehabilitation, life care planning, and catastrophic case management.
And what is vocational rehabilitation?
Vocational rehabilitation is counselors such as myself. We help individuals that have sustained or suffered an injury or have an impairment or a disability. It could be physical, mental, or emotional. And we help them come up with plans to help overcome those obstacles and assist them in either retraining or returning to work and become more independent.
And what is a life care plan?
A life care plan is a document, we call it a dynamic document. That's what, after a comprehensive assessment is done, and analysis and research, we identify those medical and non-medical needs for somebody, and we put it into a concise plan. It's kind of like a roadmap for somebody for their future care that's had an injury, a catastrophic injury, or chronic illness.
Can you please tell the jury about your educational background?
Completed my undergraduate degree in, my bachelor's degree in secondary education in psychology. I have a master's degree in 1985, University of South Carolina, specifically in rehabilitation and counseling. Also completed a 600-hour internship there. Afterwards, I continued my training and participated in a 2-year program in life care planning and catastrophic case management. It was 160 hours, and it was on site. And I continued my training over the years and continued education to stay up to date in the field.
Do you have any board certifications in your field?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell the jury what does it mean to be board certified in your fields?
In my field, board certification, in my opinion, shows a commitment in our field. It also identifies standards and meeting expectations of services to provide to clients and injured workers.
When did you receive your board certification in vocational rehabilitation counseling?
I received what's called a Certified Rehabilitation Counselor board certification in 1985.
What did you have to do to become board certified in vocational rehabilitation?
Become a certified rehab counselor is part of my graduate program, a master's degree program, so I had to demonstrate prerequisite knowledge and training, practicum, and in preparation for my graduation.
How about life care planning. When did you receive your board certification in that?
The board certification in life care planning was in 1996. That was after the training that we talked about earlier. And I was actually in the first graduating class for life care planners. I took the first board exam.
Can you tell the jury what it takes to become board certified in life care planning?
At that point in time, it was 160 hours. Today, it's 120 hours of pre-approved courses in order to sit for the examination. After you take multiple classes and get enough hours and be able to document that, you also have to be able to demonstrate the ability to perform a life care plan, and that plan is submitted for review. And then you have to take a written examination.
And how long have you worked in the fields of vocational rehabilitation and life care planning?
Vocational rehabilitation, 39 years, and then life care planning over 30.
How many life care plans have you prepared in your career?
Oh, gracious. Probably 300, 400 plus.
And what about vocational rehabilitation plans?
Probably hundreds of thousands.
Are there professional standards of practice for life care planners?
Yes, there is. There's two main professional organizations that I fall under. The first one is called the International Commission of Healthcare Certification, the ICHCC. And then the second one, which I belong, is a professional organization. And, part of that we have as far as standards called International Association of Rehab Professionals. And that's called the International Academy of Life Care, their standards of practice. And I've been involved with those standards over the years. In fact, I'm part of the Standard to Practice Revision Committee for the 3rd edition, and on the advisory committee, the 4th edition that was just published this past year.
So you are part of the professional organizations and committees who actually help set the standards for other life care planners in the industry, is that right?
I'm part of the committee, that's correct.
And I know that nobody likes to talk about these things, but you've received several honors and recognitions throughout your career, correct?
Correct. Yes, I have. I'm sorry, I'm just very...
I apologize for interrupting you. Can you tell the jury about some of your most significant honors that may be apt to what you're here to talk about today?
Yes. In a professional organization, I was able to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award this past October in life care planning. And then also 3 years earlier, received Lifetime Achievement Award in my profession in the field of rehabilitation. Also life care planning, I was given what's called the Sherry Jasper Award, and that's for my contributions to the field of life care planning and also in the field of rehabilitation, working with other life care planners and mentoring other rehab professionals.
And how are those types of honors awarded?
I guess a lot of hard work, many years in the profession, and being nominated by your peers.
Can you please tell the jury about your day-to-day practice, what you do for work?
Sure. There's two parts. I have a clinical practice and I have a consulting practice.
What are the difference between the two?
My clinical practice, what I've been doing for almost 40 years, is working with individuals that have sustained an injury or an illness or a catastrophic trauma. And so part of that, I have an opportunity to coordinate their care and do their medical case management, and also be able to provide vocational rehabilitation services where we talked about earlier, working with them and assisting them in evaluating where they are and looking at career direction and transition to other options in the workforce.
Sometimes someone suffers an injury that prevents them from continuing the job that they had or been trained to do, right?
That's correct.
And part of the services that you provide is helping to find them new work that they're capable of doing with in light of their injuries and limitations.
Yes, that's correct. Part of the process is assisting them, like we said, in looking at return to work options. Sometimes people can't go back to their profession or job. So again, it's looking at their strengths and their weaknesses and developing a plan for retraining. Also, we help them with job seeking preparation and job placement services.
And then what about the consulting side of your practice? Can you describe that?
Yes, because I've been in the field for a long time, we get calls from time to time asking our opinions and advice on rehabilitation services or care, or provide a professional opinion in the field of rehabilitation, vocational rehabilitation, and life care planning.
Have you been published in your field?
Yes.
And have any of these publications been in peer-reviewed journals?
Yes.
And the jury learned a little bit about what a peer review process is with Dr. Hudson. So I'd like to transition to why you're here today. What were you asked to do in this case?
I was two parts. Specifically, Mr. Myles Hunwardsen, I was asked to develop a life care plan secondary to his post-surgery transplant that was completed in September 2019. The second part was to do vocational rehabilitation assessment and also determine his earning capacity, access to the labor market prior to his transplant and then afterwards.
Okay, let's talk about the life care plan first. Okay. Please tell the jury what you did to develop the life care plan for Myles.
Be happy to. So part of the life care planning development, there's a method and a process. And in that process is once we receive a file, just like I would do in my practice, we would gather the information, look at the medical records, and identify what the treatment was and currently going on. From that process, we would schedule a meeting, or I'd do an initial assessment, and I did that with Mr. Hunwardsen on 2 occasions, to be able to have some information about his current status, his medications, his treatment, some of the things that were going on, any complaints and concerns, and then also be able to consolidate all that information together from my initial interview, as well as looking at his education, his background, his training. And then once I consolidated all that information, then the next process would be seeing what additional information I would need. And from that, I would consult with a physician to help provide medical foundation and give me input both on the medical care and future care. And then also some guidance as far as from a vocational perspective, what we can expect for that individual in the future.
And for the medical consultation aspect of your life care plan for Myles, who did you consult with on that?
I spoke with Dr. William Hudson.
So just to kind of summarize the process here, you reviewed all the available records, including Myles' medical records, correct?
Yes.
You met with Myles?
Yes.
On how many occasions?
Well, on 2 occasions.
And when developing a life care plan for someone, is it important to meet with the person?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
I'd like to be able to get information firsthand. I'd like to be able to get where their perspective is as to where their treatment is, what they may be involved in, having been involved in what treatment is continuing to be needed. Also like to verify the information from that person one-on-one. Sometimes you can read medical records or other records and just don't get the full picture.
And then you consulted with Dr. Hudson as well, correct?
That's correct.
On how many occasions did you?
3 occasions.
One of the primary things that you're doing with someone's life care plan is you are pricing out what their future medical care is going to cost. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And how do you determine what the potential costs are for the future medical requirements of an individual?
Sure. Well, as I said earlier, we gathered the information. Once we identify the recommended treatment and those services will be provided, then there's a method that we go into reviewing cost for someone. And so we have to project those costs. So in our profession, we have what we call consensus statements or best practices. So part of that is one, finding verifiable cost and data, finding geographic specific information, which would be where Mr. Hunwardsen located, where it's treated. And the third thing, making sure they're not discounted or negotiated cost. And if applicable, try to get more than one cost if possible, and if that's applicable. So we try to gather as much information as we can to represent what we can expect the cost to be. And that information is then used to project within the life care plan for recommended treatment.
Your Honor, I am going to pull up exhibit number 362, which is the life care plan for Myles prepared by Mr. Uiuhas. But before I do, I want to confirm that we have a stipulation. Yes.
Counsel, please no discussion in front of the jury. If you'd like to come forward to bench, be glad to turn on some white noise for you.
Yes, you mean, approach around?
Oh,
Yes, of course, that's what I said.
I made a mistake. It's exhibit 522.
Any objection by Counsel for the water?
No objection, Your Honor.
Counsel for AT&T?
No objection.
Appreciate it. Counsel for Plaintiffs, feel free to proceed.
Shane, if we could pull up exhibit 522. Oh, no, not this. 521. I'm sorry. 521. So the exhibit is 521 that I'm referencing. And
No objection for that one.
AT&T, clarification is 521, not 522.
No objection, Your Honor.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Godfrey. Now I can go back up. Appreciate it. Okay.
thank you, Shane. 521. If we could go to the first page showing the tables. Mr. Uiuhas, can you please explain to the jury what we are looking at here?
Yes. This is, as I discussed earlier, the life care plan outlines treatment that was recommended for Mr. Hunwardsen. And so what you're looking at is items and services that are being recommended. And I could put this into a table format so you'll be able to see the service recommendation or the item, when we would start that service and when it would end, and then also the frequency and the replacement.
Just a friendly reminder to speak into the microphone so we can hear you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
The frequency and replacement of those items and the purpose of the recommendation. And then you'll see Dr. Hudson's name, where I was able to obtain his recommendation and input. And then afterwards, there's a cost section, which identifies certain coding, which we use to outline services, and the resources that I utilized in order to determine those costs.
Let's talk about a little bit about each item in the context of this table before we go through the rest. If we could just look at the item in service, what is this item or service that is being recommended for Myles as part of the life care plan?
This recommended service is for his ongoing management and follow-up with the Post-Liver Transplant Center in UCLA. He will require to return for ongoing management since he's had the liver transplant. And this is a special team that will continue to assist him throughout his life expectancy.
So the jury heard from Dr. Hudson earlier, and Dr. Hudson said that one of the ongoing medical care that needs to be provided to Myles is regular visits with the transplant team at UCLA. So what you're doing is you're pricing out what that's going to cost for Myles' future as part of his life care plan, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the item or service is referring to what the recommended care is, correct?
Correct.
And the beginning and ending is the duration of how long he'll need this ongoing care, correct?
That's correct.
And the frequency replacement is how often he's going to need it, right?
Correct.
In this case, he needs to see the liver transplant team at UCLA twice a year, correct?
That's correct, unless there's other situations or complications arise.
And the purpose is why he needs it?
Well, he is on immunosuppressants or medications, and those have to be managed and monitored. As you can see, post-liver transplant, they have to continue to comprehensive management of that, which you'll find with the type of treatment is going to be more intensive and need close management.
And underneath the visits to the liver transplant team at UCLA, obviously Myles lives in Las Vegas, so this incorporates the transportation to these appointments.
Yes, that includes transportation to and from the appointments when they're scheduled.
And under recommended by, you have Dr. Hudson because that's who you consulted with on the site.
That's correct.
Okay, the cost. Please tell the jury how you came up with the cost that you have included in your life care plan.
When we're looking at costs, what you'll see is different codes like 99213 to 99215. Those are what they call common procedural term codes, and those based on office visits and time. And so based upon his medical records, he has been seen there from 30 to 40 minutes all the way up to over an hour. So that's what the top codes are, is the range of cost. And that's based upon cost from 3 data sources. 2 data sources I have up there is Context for Health, which is a database of hundreds and hundreds and thousands of claims utilizing those codes within that geographic region I talked about earlier. We try to individualize it to that region, and that because that's where he's going. And then I also looked at the UCLA actual invoice that was provided.
And in our world of big data, I guess, every type of medical treatment is associated with a special medical code. Is that right?
That's correct. The American Medical Association has a enormous listing of different codes. If you happen to go to the doctor, you might see them check a box, and it shows what activity or what service they provided, and that's what that represents.
And those codes, because they're set by the American Medical Association, are consistent no matter what hospital you go to.
That's correct. That's kind of a universal language, so everyone knows we're working on the same page as services are being provided to a patient.
So when you're determining what is the cost for a certain type of medical care, in this case, regular visits to a UCLA or to a liver transplant team, you determine what the different range of costs are based on the code associated.
That's correct.
And so you have the typical range of costs, depending on the hospital, is what you have listed under the codes?
That's correct. What I tend to do is look at ranges around the 50th percentile up to 75th percentile. So kind of in that range. There's data out there where a lot of them, colleagues and stuff, look around 75th or 80th percentile. I try to provide the range to look at what could be expected based on that geographic region.
And what's the UCLA cost indicate?
The $128 is a combination of seeing the physician, and then also there's a facility fee.
And that, where did you get the UCLA number?
Right off the UCLA invoice, the actual billing that was sent to Mr. Hunwardsen.
So under the codes, you have the average cost in the 50 to 75th percentile, right?
Correct.
And then that UCLA is the actual cost, the bill.
It's the actual cost, just to be able to compare that, and it falls in that range and slightly below.
And then what about the flights? How did you determine those?
Well, we have to look at, projecting 6 months in advance, so if Mr. Hunwardsen can plan in advance, it's going to be a lot less. But what we did is looked at in advance and just looked at different airlines that he has utilized in the past, with Delta Airlines and American Airlines, and then also that he uses Uber from the airport to the facility and back.
And this basic format and methodology, it's repeated throughout the life care plan, correct?
That's correct. It's throughout the life care plan, and it's what we teach as well.
And this has been admitted as Exhibit 521, so the jury would be able to review this closely should they choose, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's look through just some of the categories of your life care plan. So when we see at the top present and future care, what does that category refer to?
That's referring to future medical care that could be expected for Mr. Hunwardsen. So a lot of times as life care planners, we like to have headings to designate different types of services that you'll need in the future.
Shane, if we could go through this page by page, we can just explain what each is. So like this page, Mr. Uiuhas, what is this referring to?
This is a recommendation for him, Mr. Hunwardsen, to follow up with the primary care physician. And it's recommended that he see one. He's, in my understanding, the process of being seen by a primary care physician. So after his evaluation, he needs to be seen every 6 months. As I indicated earlier, his follow-up is more intensive than the average person. So we want to make sure he's being medically managed locally, trying to prevent infections and also deal with any side effects from immunosuppressants.
And if we just quickly go through the different pages, these are all ongoing medical care that has been recommended for Myles as a result of his liver failure and transplant. Is that right?
That's correct. It outlines different categories from physician appointments to medication, diagnostic studies, to therapeutic treatment type of things.
Go back, Shane. Okay, and so what you're doing in this life care plan is you are pricing out how much these different services are going to cost into the future for Myles.
That's correct. Everything you'll see is outlined based on the service, the recommendation, what it was recommended by, as well as where I obtained the information and that cost that it will incur in order for that service to be provided.
And then if we go down a couple pages, we get to medications. Now, the jury heard from Dr. Hudson earlier about the different medications, including immunosuppressive medications that Myles is going to need to take for the rest of his life. Are you pricing out what those medications are going to cost as part of his life care plan?
Yes, part of the category of medications, this is something that we medically required of and determined medically necessary by Dr. Hudson.
If we could go down a few pages to diagnostic studies. Can you explain the diagnostic studies that are included in your life care plan generally?
Yes. Well, this specific life care plan, not in general, but for Mr. Hunwardsen, based on my consultation with Dr. Hudson, there'll be the tractarimus whole blood to make sure he's in therapeutic range, that he's not getting too low, because there'll be side effects for that. There'll be complete blood count, really looking at the blood cells and just looking for any infections and managing the liver as well as the comprehensive metabolic panel. So there's a series of different tests that are done to continue to help medically manage him, make sure his medications are in therapeutic range. And again, as we mentioned earlier, we just want to avoid any potential exposure to infection and those things that could affect him. And also to monitor any potential side effects from the medications that he's taken, because there's several from those.
And Dr. Hudson, I think, explained that a lot of those side effects and problems that Myles may encounter in the future earlier. And again, you're just pricing out what those medical costs are going to be associated with those different things.
That's correct.
If we could go down a few pages to the durable medical equipment. Could you please describe what the durable medical equipment is?
Yeah. This is equipment and supplies. It's basically twofold. I put equipment and supplies together. Equipment is a blood pressure cuff. One of the things that you may have heard is from the medications that you could potentially have become hypertensive or have cardiovascular disease involvement. So managing that blood pressure is important.
And just to kind of reiterate what we're doing here in terms of pricing. So he's going to need a blood pressure cuff to monitor his blood pressure because of the risk of hypertension and cardiovascular issues.
Right. And he's going to be able to do that himself. Of course, if he goes to the doctor, they'll do that for him, but he needs to manage that himself as well.
And so this is a piece of equipment that Myles will buy, so he has at home to monitor it himself.
Yes, that's correct.
And the cost of this equipment is between $94.99 and $110, correct?
That's correct.
And under frequency, it says every 5 years. That means these things don't last forever. He's going to have to replace it probably once every 5 years.
That's correct.
So he's going to incur this cost of $94.99 to $110 every time he buys a new one, which will be approximately every 5 years while he is still with us.
That's correct.
Okay. And then same with sunscreen. We heard about the significant risk of skin cancer, so it's important that Myles has sunscreen.
Absolutely.
And you're pricing that out as part of your life care.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go down to a couple more pages to the hospitalization. Why is this part of the life care plan?
Well, one of the things, and he's experienced this early on as well, if he has a fever or has any issues regarding potential side effects, it's important that he has access to emergency services. So according to Dr. Hudson, and including the life care, I costed out what those services would be if he required emergency visits, estimating at least 2 to 4 times within his lifetime.
Shane, if we could go down a couple pages to home care option 1, or 1 page actually, next page. Mr. Uiuhas, the jury heard Dr. Hudson testify earlier today that in the last few years of Myles' life, he may need some specialized home or skilled health care and hospice care. Can you explain how you incorporated that into your life care plan?
So when we're looking at life care planning, we're looking at the entire life. And in this situation, we're trying to look at what services are provided for Mr. Hunwardsen at the latter stages of his life. And during that time, we're looking at attendant care assistance that he may be required depending on what level of care he may need as he gets to the latter part of his life. So what we've done here is I've developed a table to depict attendant care services to help him with any activities of daily living, anything he might need in bathing, dressing, any other instrumental activities, shopping, going to the store, and those types of things that anticipated that some assistance will be required for him in the latter stages of his life.
And you have home care option 1. What does that mean?
Well, what I try to do is look at different options for an individual when they have home care. So in this situation, we have option 1 where we have a home care aide come in and assist him daily, and that will continue within the last 3 to 5 years of his life. And then also in the last 6 months of his life. Included is skilled nursing. What happens, and I'm able to determine the frequency of that, but it becomes more complicated, if you will, at the latter parts of his life, and there's needs for some type of medication or any type of injections or other treatment, then a skilled level nurse would have to come in. But at this point, it would be on an as-needed basis, and I can't really tell you how frequent. And then the last part is the last 6 months of his life, where hospice could actually come to his home and assist him until he passes away.
And is one, if we could look at option 2, which is a couple pages down.
What is this referring to, Mr. Uiuhas?
This is another option. The first option is home-based, if you will, where he can stay at home and continue his final years. This is actually a facility, and there's other residential supported living facilities that someone can go to in the last 3 to 5 years. And then this is supplemented the last 6 months of their life, where actually hospice can come to that facility and provide the supportive care in transition to end of life.
Is the home care and facility care alternative options?
They are alternative options.
So Myles will just need one or the other, not both.
Correct. I'm not recommending both. It's something that you could see as options for him, depending on his medical status and to maintain some quality of life and dignity.
Is one option more expensive than the other?
Yes.
Which one?
I would say the home care would be.
Why is the home care option more expensive?
What you would look at is included in part of the treatment, you have skilled care coming in with him, and to be able to follow up with them, as well as hospice if we look back at the other care.
And
Because a lot of that would be if he got up to 24-hour care. And when he's in a facility, it's self-contained. So we wouldn't have the nursing services. They would be all self-contained within the facility.
based on your experience working with individuals, is one option more preferable than the other?
Objection, foundation.
Based on my
Hold on a
experience.
second.
Sorry.
Mr. Wolf,
I'm sorry.
the foundation,
Yes. He's not a
based, sustained, based on this designation of this witness.
Mr. Uiuhas, you have worked with individuals for many years to prepare life care plans for those individuals, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you testified earlier that you have prepared hundreds of life care plans for different individuals, is that right?
That's correct.
And when you prepare a life care plan, you usually meet with the individual who you're preparing the life care plan for, is that right?
That's correct.
Based on your work with these individuals, well, before I get there, have you prepared life care plans for individuals that include home care or facility care options?
Yes, I have.
Many times?
Many times, and also part of my clinical practice.
Based on your experience preparing these life care plans and working with these individuals as part of your clinical practice, is one of these options generally more preferable than the other?
Objection, cause for speculation.
Sustained.
Mr. Uiuhas, if it were a life care plan for you, would you prefer one of these options over the other?
Objection, irrelevant. Sustained.
Mr. Uiuhas, you reviewed the opinions of the medical expert retained by Realwater, Dr. Alsina. Have you reviewed those opinions?
Yes.
And do you know what, according to Dr. Alsina, Myles' life expectancy is after his liver transplant?
Objection, Your Honor, I'm going to reapproach.
Sure. And Court Attorney Johnson White Nice. The court sustained the objection. Counsel, feel free to ask the next question.
Mr. Uiuhas, in terms of the life care plan that you prepared, these numbers with respect to the life expectancy of Mr. Hunwardsen go out 26 years, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What is the reason for the 26 years?
Excuse me. The foundation in that, my opinion, is based on Dr. Hudson, indicating projected life expectancy of 30 years. It's been approximately 4 years since the transplant, so that would be 26 years.
Were you asked to add up the numbers contained in your life care plan to determine
how much the total cost that you believe would be expected to be incurred by Myles over the next 26 years of his remaining life expectancy would be to a reasonable degree of professional certitude.
Yes.
And what are those amounts?
Excuse me, John, I would need to see one piece of paper that I have in my file, if possible. No, they're the small binder.
Is it safe to say you can't recall at the moment?
I cannot recall without looking at this.
Your Honor, can I approach to?
Please show it to the counsel for each of the parties. BTT, let's look at it as well, please. Is there any objection by Real Water from showing it to the witness?
Grant a copy for Real Water, no objection, Your Honor.
ETT?
Uiuhas for ETT, not for showing it to the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, so this junction, we show it to the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. We can refer to what?
Take a look at your note, Mr. Uiuhas. Does that refresh your recollection on the amount?
Yes, it does.
And what is the amount that you totaled that?
The 26 years, we're looking at home option of $2,440,728.04. And then for facility, it would be $1,259,735.16.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Okay, Mr. Uiuhas, let's talk about your vocational rehabilitation assessment. Can you tell the jury what you did there?
Part of the method that we involved in doing vocational assessments and determine earning capacity, I again interviewed Mr. Hunwardsen, who followed a method we call rappel. And again, it includes reviewing all the previous medical records, and then interviewing Mr. Hunwardsen, as well as his depositions, and then following the method of rappel. And what rappel is a mnemonic. It stands for R is for rehabilitation plan, A is access to the labor market, P is placeability, can you be placed? And E is, earnings capacity, in which we try to look at what he earned before his injury or transplant, and then after his transplant. And then L is labor force participation. How long would he be expected in his work life expectancy in the workforce? So it's been published, it's been accepted, and it's one of the highly used and most highly used method that we have as vocational rehab counselors in determining earning capacity.
Let's kind of break down and go through the steps of the rappel method. Is there anything to add in terms of the R for rehabilitation plan?
No, that's the recommendation that I have within my report. And the rehab plan is, what would you recommend for Mr. Hunwardsen? And I would be recommending a vocational evaluation, which you'll see within the life care plan, and some vocational counseling, because he's going to need to make a change in job or career in the future. So that's what that stands for.
And you consulted with Dr. Hudson on this?
Yes, I did.
And based on that consultation, you are planning for Myles to transition to a different job from his current job of iron worker?
Yes, that's correct. Part of my consultation with Dr. Hudson is to get a vocational perspective as far as what we could expect down the road. So part of the vocational rehab counselor, we want to look at, are there any limitations? And some of those from reviewing the medications and the side effects and some of the information that Mr. Hunwardsen indicated during my intake interview with him, we would be looking at him going towards more a sedentary type of position. The type of job he has now is an iron worker, and he's currently in that position. It's very heavy and requires a lot of manual exertion.
So let's establish a couple things. Number one, you're not saying that Myles can no longer be an iron worker today, are you?
No, sir. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that as a vocational rehab counselor, you know, I'd be obligated to be able to plan his future job, and we know what's coming. So part of that would be assisting him in finding jobs that would match his abilities and his aptitudes.
And for the purposes of your assessment, when are you planning for Myles to transition to a different type of job than iron worker?
Pending no complications around age 40.
And at age 40, are you saying that Myles will no longer be able to work at all?
No, I'm not saying that. Excuse me. What I am saying is that because of the guidelines that have been provided to me by Dr. Hudson, we know by age 40 he'll need to start preparing to make this transition from working in that highly physically demanding job to something that's more appropriate, that's more sedentary.
In terms of the A for the rappel method, access to the labor market, do you have anything else to add to that part of it?
Well, part of that process is, again, looking at someone's education and their training. Mr. Hunwardsen, was an apprenticeship program, and then he ended up primarily working in reinforced iron work with rebar. It's reinforcement of the rebar into the concrete and the metal. It's pretty physical, hands-on, wrapping the rebar, cutting the rebar, to be able to put that in place. So part of that analysis, what we do looking at the access is seeing what skill level, what educational level he has, and how that might be used and transferred into other jobs in the market.
And is that, to use an extreme example, it's not like Myles when he's age 40 and can no longer perform the job responsibilities of an iron worker, can just go and become a medical doctor, right?
No, I wish, but no, unfortunately. When we look at jobs, in all of us in our profession, there's what we call worker traits. There's certain educational levels, and there's certain aptitudes, your general learning ability, your verbal aptitude, numerical aptitude, those things that help you learn or try to learn another job or transfer into another job. So there's many what we call worker traits. And so we have to look at all those for each item across the board of what he has demonstrated in his work history. So based on that information, then we can future plan what we might need to do for him. I'm not saying, we will not be able to return to work, but I think it's something that has to be planned, knowing what's going to happen in the future.
And the jobs that he can transition into have to be realistic for what his training and skills and abilities are.
That's correct. Unfortunately, being a heavy iron worker and the type of training you have, working in that field, it doesn't transfer to a whole lot of sedentary desk jobs, if you will, or some possible jobs where you can get up and walk around and things like that. So unfortunately, he would probably, his access to the market would probably be more towards entry-level type of positions that you find out there for somebody with his background, unless he gets some retraining.
What about placeability? How did that factor into your analysis? The P at the top.
P is important because, again, you've got to have the education and training ability to get a job. But placeability, we always say that's where the rubber hits the pavement. Are you going to actually get the job? So if all things equal, if he's able to, maybe pick up some computer classes or do some things like prepare order clerk, industrial order clerk, and those types of jobs, then, the placeability of those jobs would be a lot easier based on his marketability, if you will, to be hired.
Are those-
Your next question. Just further reminder, and people have a tendency to do this on a witness stand, they like to either tap things, whether it be pens or different things, or tap their fingers, et cetera, sometimes glasses or other things that you might be tapping.
Apologies, Your Honor.
And so realistically, the sound gets picked up. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you so much. For pedestrians.
And those types of retraining or learning of an additional skills, like computer skills, are those factored into your analysis?
Yes, they are.
What about the E in Rappel, earning capacity?
Earning capacity is when we now take that information and look at what was it pre-injury and what do we anticipate post-injury, or we say post-transplant in this situation. So we want to look at what is it, what he could potentially earn versus what he's able to earn today, and what can he earn 10 years from now, if that makes sense.
And did you review Myles' annual earnings prior to his liver failure and transplant?
Yes, I did.
And what were those?
It ranged, but I think the highest year that he earned was around $101,000, at that time, prior to the transplant.
And if Myles had not suffered his liver failure and transplant, how long would he have been able to continue to work?
My interview with him is his desire to continue until retirement, age 67.
And I should preface that or qualify that with as an iron worker, 67?
That's correct. That was his desire.
But for his liver failure and transplant, you have an opinion regarding whether his earning capacity through retirement would have been consistent with his pre-injury earnings?
It would not be consistent, it would be inconsistent as far as post-transplant.
If he hadn't had the transplant,
Correct.
would his earnings have been, his pre-earnings?
Oh, yes, he would have continued.
Okay, but because of the transplant, those pre-injury earnings are not going to be consistent.
That's correct. That was his demonstrated highest earning.
Did you form an opinion regarding what the difference is in the pre-injury earnings versus earnings after he transitions out of employment as an iron worker?
Yes, I did.
And what is that difference?
Well, you're talking about post-transplant as far as not considering his current work?
Yes, how was his earning capacity affected by his liver failure and transplant?
The types of jobs that, well, right now, we know what he's currently working and what he's making. And then in 10 years from now, that's when the impact we're going to see where he's no longer to make that particular level of earning. So based on that, I'd have to look at specific numbers, but we're probably looking at a reduction of at least 40–50% of his earnings, probably somewhere around 28 to 40, some $38,000.
In the last factor of the Rappel method, the labor force participation, can you explain your analysis on that?
Yes. What you're looking at is how long will he continue of his work life? And really, that depends on medical input. There are tables that you can look at, but that depends on how long would he remain in the workforce doing the job, either as an iron worker or 10 years from now afterward.
It's in court's indulgence. I have one. additional exhibit that I believe has been stipulated to. Before we pull it up, I want to confirm with council Exhibit 381.
Mayor Kaufman, no objection from real water.
ETT, no objection.
And it's no objection to be admitted, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Your Honor. Mayor
That's
Kaufman.
correct, Your Honor.
I appreciate it. And 381 is admitted and we put up on the screen. Thank you.
Mr. Uiuhas, can you tell the jury what we're looking at in Exhibit 381?
This is a loss of earning calculations that was developed by the economists.
Is it your understanding that the economist took your loss of earning capacity and calculated them out and reduced the numbers to present value to determine total historical and present value of future lost earnings?
Yes, that's correct.
And that number is at the bottom of this exhibit. Is this, these values, the $170,238 in total historical lost earnings associated with the liver failure and transplant, and present value of $1,883,270 in loss of future earnings, consistent with your vocational assessment and loss of earnings analysis?
The information is correct. The economists utilized the numbers I provided that's within his report.
Thank you, Mr. Uiuhas. Those are all the questions I have for you.
Thank you.
Is this a good time for afternoon break?
Yes, Your Honor.
Perfect, then we will do so. It's 3 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. Time for our afternoon break. We'll ask you to come back at 3:20 during this recess. You are allowed to talk and converse among yourselves with anyone else on any subject connected with this trial. You cannot read, watch, or listen to any report of or commentary on the trial or any person or entity connected with the trial by any medium of information, including without limitation, social media, text, tweets, television, internet, radio, anything I've not stated is also included. Do not visit the scene or the events mentioned during the trial. Do not undertake any research, experimentation, or investigation. Do not do any posting or communications on any social networking sites or anywhere else, or do any independent research, including but not limited to internet searches. Of course, you must not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with the case till it's fully and finally submitted to the time of jury deliberations. With that, we wish you a very nice afternoon break. Thank you so very much.
All right, please.
Okay, have a nice break, everyone.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.